Everyone, welcome to the session, Smart City Solutions, working with the users during the Mannheim conference. My name is Esben Pejstrup. I work for Miquel, and I will quickly go through some technical details you may want to know and give a very brief overview before handing off to our moderator, Maria Sangiuliano, from CEO of Smart Venice and Action Cluster Lead of the Smart Cities Marketplace. First of all, we have a few house rules. At first, you're muted. Up in your left corner, you can request to be unmuted. We will not turn that on now. We will not use it now, but we may do so later in case of questions. You can still engage despite being muted. You can write questions to the moderators, to the speakers in the Q&A on your left side. That's the question mark. You can also write to me. I'm the technical support. You can write to me in the chat. If you want to share insights with everyone, you should also do that in the chat. Good. Then very quickly, just before we start the sessions, because all our representatives today are from the European Smart Cities program from projects funded by Horizon 2020. They funded 17 projects since 2015. It's more than 40 lighthouse cities which implement smart city solutions, and more than 70 fellow cities which looks into how they can take the smart city solutions and upscale them. Important to know is Barcelona, London, and Rotterdam. They're all in a lighthouse project. Barcelona joined the first generation of projects. They joined GROWSMARTER all the way back in 2015. London is in the second generation of lighthouse projects from 2016. And Rotterdam is in the third generation of lighthouse projects. That means the projects, the cities you will hear from today, are different stages of the lighthouse smart city development. Then very quickly, Horizon, the 17 projects, they're all being supported by something called the Smart Cities Marketplace. Until 2 days ago, it was called the EIP SCC, but the Smart Cities Marketplace is a platform to ensure that we upscale the solutions all these projects are working on. You will hear about some of those solutions today. Quickly, about the Smart Cities Marketplace, we have 6 action clusters, more than 20 initiatives. It gathers experts to improve the upscaling of smart city solutions. That's to make sure that we use the right technology, we use the right standards, and we make sure that there are business plans, business models for other cities, other developers to implement. It also connects cities and other project makers with financial providers. They have investors ready to invest in smart city solutions. And they help you prepare for your smart city, project for investment. That's the very brief overview, and I will now hand off to our moderator, Maria Sangiuliano, from the EIP of the Smart Cities Marketplace and from Smart City Venice.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Esben. It's a pleasure to moderate such a lineup of amazing speakers. My name is Maria Sangiuliano. I have been coordinating the Citizen Engagement Action Cluster since back in 2014. We are actually focused on all what is related to citizen engagement, you can find us at every big event on smart cities. We have been participating to Nordic Edge. We often have a stand and workshops at Smart City Expo in Barcelona. What we do is really pulling together the knowledge providers on citizen engagement and cities who are looking for solutions. Our cluster is composed of 3 main initiatives that you can join. You are always welcome to join our network and participate to our webinars and all the initiatives that we work in. Citizen engagement is actually a prominent topic on the smart cities agenda nowadays. We all know that, especially became quite visible and important in the mission board climate neutral smart cities. During the recent research and innovation days, the targets for this mission were published, and citizen engagement, participation, deliberative democracy have all really gained a lot of attention and importance. You can find all these, all the targets on the mission board website. And it's really clear that the field of knowledge, it's now mature. Recently, the JRC has published the Navigating Diversity and Citizen Engagement Across EU report. They have mapped more than 1,000 projects, organizations, and hubs who are active across Europe on citizen engagement. Ourselves as a cluster, together with the Smart Cities information system, we have recently released the Citizen Engagement Solution Booklet, which is also available on the website. We can paste the links in the chat in a few minutes, where you can find all the lessons learned on these topics from several smart city projects across Europe. But without any further ado, I would like now to give the floor straight to our first speaker, who will tell us about the smart city experience in Barcelona. So Miquel Rodríguez Planas, who is commissioner for the 2030 agenda at the Barcelona City Council, and has been working also on the GROWSMARTER project in the previous years. Thank you, Miquel.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Ismail. Well, good morning, and it's really a pleasure being here with you. As you can see in this presentation, I would like to present briefly the GROWSMARTER project that we were doing in Barcelona together with Stockholm and Cologne during 2015 and 2019. And from this briefly presentation of the GROWSMARTER project, I will explain the case of Barcelona, and specifically two examples, two solutions that we did in Barcelona. As you can see in the title, I will be focusing more in the partnership with local stakeholder rather than citizen engagement. I would like to explain you why we prefer to talk about these local stakeholder partnerships, and I think it's because of the reality we're living right now. The reality that all of us were living, the COVID, the pandemic, the COVID-19 thing, and in cities like Barcelona, where we live, or we used to live, basically or mainly with thanks to the tourism, trying to enhance a new economy, new companies based on smart solutions, it will be crucial to overcome the threats of the pandemic. So that's why we think that it's better to focus on local stakeholders. So going to the project, when we had the approval of the project, the European Union had a very specific challenge by 2030. The reduction of 40% of emission, the reduction of 30% of energy usage, and the increase of 20% of renewable energy. As you may know, some of these targets had been improved in the last years, but this was the main scope, the main framework where we deployed the project. As you know, because we are all cities, we are the main driver, the main administration, the main place where the changes can be done. And I don't want to stay in this slide because we all know the importance of cities. So if we go to the GROWSMARTER project, just for you to know, this was a project with 3 lighthouse cities: Stockholm, the leader of the project, Cologne, and Barcelona. That the 3 of us, we were implementing more than 50 solutions, more than 50 pilots, grouped in 12 smart solutions, and these smart solutions were grouped also in 3 main areas. One was low energy districts, another one was integrated infrastructure, and finally urban mobility. Together with these 3 lighthouse cities, we had 5 forward cities: Valletta, Suez-Teaba, Porto, Cork, and Graz. that were able to follow the project and to create their own replication plans once they learn from us. So the project had three main targets that were basically based on achieving three main pillars of sustainability: the environmental one, the social one, and the economic one. Meaning that we wanted to improve or being more efficient in energy usage, reduce the transport emission, and be able to create new jobs. And this last one, the one about new jobs, was a priority for us. And because in the underneath of the project, what we really wanted to see was the capacity of creating from these pilots business models that were able to succeed and being able to scale them up and replicate them. So by the time that we were preparing the project in 2014, we didn't know it, but as you can see, we were preparing a project under the philosophy or totally aligned with the 2030 agenda and the Sustainable Development Goals. To be more concrete, the GROWSMARTER project had this main target that was 60% of reduction of energy usage, 60% of reduction of GHG emissions, and being able to create in the future 1,500 new jobs. So if we go to the local consortium in Barcelona, you can see that here we have several local stakeholders, and for us it was very important to have this combination of public stakeholders with the city council of Barcelona, but also having private ones that were with different sizes, big companies, but also SMEs, and also some cooperatives. And on the other side, it was also very important to have the academia, because we understood that this combination of local stakeholders, this combination of this public-private partnership or holistic public-private partnership, including the academia, allowed us to enhance innovation, and from this innovation allowed us to create new products that this will help to create startup, a spin-off from the academia. I will go back at the end of the last results, or where are we now that we have learned all the experience from GROWSMARTER. So the first work package was the low energy districts. This one basically or mainly was about improving the efficiency of the use of energy in buildings through energy and smart climate shelf, refurbishment, and allowing some smart solution for energy saving for the tenants. So as you can see, this was done in the three cities, Stockholm, Barcelona, and Cologne. As you can see the figures, the amount of square meters retrofitted and improved was quite considerable. And in the case of Barcelona, as you can see in this picture, we were able to refurbish 10 buildings. And the interesting thing here was that all of them were completely different. We had tertiary buildings, we had public buildings, we had residential buildings, we had residential from the public side, social buildings, but also private residential buildings. On the tertiary buildings, we had different uses, such as an hotel, a sports center, an office center, a school, a library. So all this combination was very rich because it allowed us to test the refurbishment in different kind of uses of the buildings, and from here see or observe different conclusions. From the point of view of the residential buildings, and specifically on the social housing ones that maybe it might be more interesting for you as city servants, it's that this, in the case of the social housing, we were able to reduce 30% of the gas consumption. And another goal was to improve in 53% the thermal comfort of the buildings. So from here, I would like to point to stop briefly in this slide, where I would like to share with you the different challenges we had during the implementation of this main solution of retrofitting. The first one was the capacity of the local staff, the local staff skills, the capacity to be able to do this project, because it was for the local authorities, it was completely a new way of retrofitting, with including smart solutions, and it was not only retrofitting the shield of the building, but also trying to reduce the energy. So here we had local training done by the academia, but also by the private sector. And also what we guarantee with the private sector was a requirement and penalties to be sure that everyone was doing the work that they had to do. Another challenge that we had was financing, because this project had a part of financing. It has the part financing from the European Union. But what was interesting here, it's being able to find a business model behind them. And what we saw here is that in some cases, public-private partnership was very important, specifically in residential sector, in residential buildings, not only on the social ones, but also in the private ones. And when I give the conclusions, you will understand why, and if not, we can go in the Q&A to clarify this. Another challenge was sorry, I don't know why it moved. Okay, another challenge was the multiple ownership residential sector. As you know, at least in Spain, like we have a building that there's several owners there. So here was very challenging this point, and to overcome this challenge, what we did is we engaged several campaigns for tenants and owners. We had meeting with them to try to make them understand the benefits of the projects. And the last challenge was trying to do energy retrofitting of historical buildings. And these are very complicated buildings, and the crucial here issue was having a governmental action, a governmental willing of the project. So going to the lessons learned, what we learned here, it's something that may be basic, but it is clear to know, is that climate is a clear vector when you do retrofitting, because we really had different conclusions between Cologne, Stockholm, and Barcelona. As you know, or as you may know, Barcelona has a very moderate climate, and this was crucial to see that some of the business model were failing in Barcelona. And the reality was that only tertiary buildings with an intensive use of energy had a capacity of financial return in Barcelona. So to be clear, what we say is that only the hotels or the sports centers were able to engage in a private financial model to do the retrofitting of their buildings. Because in these cases, the energy savings were able to pay the investment. In the rest of the cases, specifically in the housing ones, this model failed. So that's why we saw that if we want to really improve retrofitting, smart retrofitting solutions that improve energy savings in buildings, in residential buildings, at least in cases such as Barcelona with a moderate climate, we really need public-private partnerships. And these public-private partnerships can be very different. You can offer loans, you can offer grants, or you can even do what we call ESCO models, where the investment is paid by an SPV, a specific purpose vehicle, done together between the public and the private sector, and the investment is assumed by this SPV, and it assumes also the gains, but also the losses of the project. And here is where the public sector helps. So if I go to another example, and this one is about the sustainable urban mobility, here I would like to share a very specific one regarding micro distribution. As you may know, micro distribution has a very important challenge related to online shopping, that we have like plenty of, when you buy something, you can have like at the end more than 2 or 3 or 4 trips for one product, because when you buy the product, then you're not at home, or maybe when you're at home you don't like the product, so they give it back. So at the end you have a lot of movement in terms of mobility. So and this movement of mobility at the end represent a lot of emissions from the trucks that deliver the goods. So what we wanted to do is try to reduce this reality of emissions. So what we created is the Urban Consolidation Center. That basically what we did here is that this Urban Consolidation Center was like a hub where they receive from the carriers all the freights, and from this UCC, what we did is with cargo bikes, electric cargo bikes or electric tricycles, we did the last mile delivery to the buyers. So here, what we had, it's a very interesting relation between the city council and the private company that a very small SME. In fact, it was more cooperative than as a SME that was able to implement this project. Of course, as it was a so small company, here it was crucial to have the help of the city council that give it for free during the project the place where the hub, the UCC, was deployed. The results of this project were very interesting. We had like 96% of CO2 reductions, 22% of reduction of noise, and we had 92% of successful deliveries. And a very important thing in this project, in this case, was that it was crucial to have a legal framework that enhances this micro-distribution. And this legal framework was that from the city council, we avoid trucks to get into the city center from 10 in the morning up to 10 in the night, something like that. And this allowed that the only way to deliver freight were through micro-distribution. So, and this is basically what we learned. So I would like to just finish my presentation, and from here we can have plenty of Q&As by showing the next step with the lessons learned from all this project. From here, what we're doing is we're working in two main projects. One is creating a retrofitting fund, and this retrofitting fund will be done together between the public sector and the private sector. And here we will be investing together to implement solutions to implement photovoltaic panels in residential and tertiary buildings, but also retrofitting several buildings. Another conclusion or lesson learned from this project is that we are working in the implementation of a network of urban consolidation centers around the neighborhoods of Barcelona. This is very complex project, but we hope that we will be able to start it by 2021. And here what we are willing is that each of the neighborhood, we have like 10 districts in Barcelona, each of the districts of Barcelona should have a hub of last mile, and from here delivering the phrase to the users. Finally, I would like to show all the partners that we had in the project, in GROWSMARTER project, and I would like to go back again about the need to have these local stakeholders, and these local stakeholders are more important now than ever, with, as I said at the beginning, with the COVID-19, and I'm thinking about Maria, that's just in Venice. I'm thinking about Barcelona. I'm thinking in other cities that we have an economy quite similar, that we are suffering these days and this month, and we don't know when we will be able to recover this model of economy more based in tourism and services. And due to this reality, for cities like ours, being able to find solutions like the ones of GROWSMARTER, the ones that are successful, and from here being able to replicate them, scale them up, and meaning that we're able to create a network of companies, small, medium companies based on innovation and smart solutions, it's for us the future of our cities. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Miguel, for a very informative and interesting presentation. This was clearly a successful project, well, I would already have many questions. I think the main points that you mentioned were the importance of really have broad partnerships, right? And invest on capacity building of the local staff and engage the beneficiaries, the citizens, in your case, as it was all about retrofitting meetings with tenants and owners. Maybe you will tell us more about this and how the inputs from this particular group of citizens has provided input into your project activities in the Q&A. I don't know whether you want to make any final remarks. Otherwise, we can maybe give the floor straight to our next speaker.
I will leave it to the Q&As. So
good.
Okay.
Thank you, Miguel. So the next in our lineup is Katelien van der Berge, who is city coordinator in Rotterdam for the RUGGEDISED Smart City project. The floor is yours, Katelien. Katelien, I think we cannot hear you. You maybe have your microphone off.
Yep. Okay, yeah, now it's turned off. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So my name is Katelien. I'm from the city of Rotterdam. I work in the engineering department of the city development department, and I'm responsible for all the energy transition related tasks or building projects we have in the city. Next slide. For the RUGGEDISED project, we're talking about an area in the south of Rotterdam. And here you see the center of Rotterdam with the central station, and here is the harbor, and on this side is the mainland. Within the yellow mark, this is the heart of South. There is a huge public transport hub, some cultural buildings. We have the Ahoy Center over here. This area was not paid any attention to since the 60s. And in 2008, they made a new plan to redevelop this area. And the main goal for this was, next slide, to invest in a social return. So they made a plan to give this area in a public-private partnership to a contractor, companies. And they won the bid. They took this area in ownership for 20 years. And they had to redevelop some public areas, but also some program the municipality wanted to be realized in this area. And then there was some extra space for themselves to invest in there. €500 million is invested in this area. The main goal to make this a more lively area was also to invest in the social return, not only of this area, but in the whole south of Rotterdam. This area was, as I said, 2008. There was no space or money or extra attention for environmental goals. So it was mainly focused on redeveloping buildings, the transport hub, and everything else. And then the ruggedized project broke kind of into this development. And it was mainly steered by the municipality, but of course we had our partners. One of the partners was also the contractor, but also the energy company, the public transport company. So all these partners in the ruggedized project all had their main influences in this area. And all of a sudden, it started to come back, all the sustainable goals. We also, of course, had time with us, so it was more accepted to have some how do you say that, some attention for it. So what happened? There was a huge ambition for being energy neutral, or at least energy that the energy was produced on in the area itself. This is on the thermal energy, but also on the electric energy. So there's huge solar panel roofs and thermal grids. Then the green came more in attention. So there was more space available for more green in this area. And a very important thing for the Dutch cities is how do you take care of all the water that we have coming down with rain showers, but also with the rising of the water level. So there are water squares, there is a slow water infiltration. There are, how do you say that? The water storage within the squares, but also within the residential areas and within the area for Ahoy. So all of a sudden there was more space and more investments. That's the important thing, of course, for several sustainable goals. The next slide, this is now I'm focusing a bit more on the ruggedized project. So what we started in 2000, I don't even know, 16, I think. And we realized until today, as I mentioned before, loads of PV cells on the roofs of the public transport hub, the theater, the Ahoy complex, and on the private homes. We did some studies for a battery to store the energy and to make a perfect electrical grid, but we realized that the battery, where it was planned for the public transport hub, was not necessary, because by the electrical buses that started to drive in Rotterdam, they charge during the day and not so much during the evening. So they could better directly charge from the PV panels instead of store it in a battery. It was at the same time they were using the PV panels. We tested some smart lighting, but of course time passed us already. The smart lighting that was placed within this ruggedized area is already outdated for the city of Rotterdam. So they in the city they replace all the lantern poles, but by another system than we tested. But of course, the lessons learned that we tested here were taken into the upscaling of the smart lighting. Smart waste was a kind of interesting project because, especially during Corona, it was implemented directly at the beginning of the project, and I think 1 year later they decided to implement it through all the containers in the whole city. And during Corona time, they were quite happy with the system that it was in place just before Corona came in, because they could see that all the households had about 35% more waste, which they could easily reschedule their truck schedule to collect the waste from the waste bins. So within the city of Rotterdam during Corona, there was never an overloaded waste bin. But of course, the department that was responsible for these collection, they were kind of overworked, and they had to buy all of a sudden two new trucks, etc. Last year, 50 electrical buses started to drive through Rotterdam out of 250 for the coming next years, and they are being charged by the grid, a local grid, and we didn't need an extra cable to the main energy ring around Rotterdam. Because of optimizing this study, not only about the battery, but also about the routing and the charging times. And we have a LoRa network within Heart of South in place, which is functioning fine, but which is there. But then the real innovative solutions we are building here is two grids, an electrical grid and a thermal grid. And here we see differences with the stakeholders we involved. We built a smart thermal grid using a geothermal storage system with a backbone connecting 4 kinds of users. So the Ahoy complex, a new convention area next to Ahoy, convention hall, it's huge, and then a hotel and a cinema. And a hotel and cinema are still to be built. But here you see the difficulties with the stakeholders. We have an energy provider. We have, I think it's better to show it on the next slide. It's a complex situation, so we have no people living here. We don't have the classic citizens, but we have companies, and to have a business model that works, you need large buy-in buildings or end users. So here we talk about, for all the different companies, we have different developers, we have investors, we have the energy provider, we have the energy infrastructure owner, we have the that's a typical thing for Rotterdam. We have concession areas, and we have different companies for the different concession areas, energy companies. We have Ahoy itself, but the real estate is owned by the municipality. Then we have, for the cinema, we have a Dutch consortium that wants to build a cinema, but a French owner of the. So in this case, it's a very complex stakeholder engagement process, and we notice that all these stakeholders are used to classic contracts, classic energy provision, classic cooperation together. They are not used to this new kind of energy provision that you share between the buildings, and demand and question are optimized. And of course, if you're talking with the hotel owner or the renter of the hotel building, the most important thing for them is that there is heating and cooling within the room. So it needs to be perfect, and it needs to be as a classic situation. It was, but the contracts around it are a bit different. So there you need, you see a very different process. As most of smart city test projects on different subjects, but mainly on energy, I think you see the differences with the users. Most of them are implemented in residential areas where you have local citizens, apartment blocks, and you have the citizens. You have individual characters, and there in a kind of way to engage them, you send out information letters. You have information evenings. You have presentations of the plans. You have co-creation. You ask for their opinions, and you make a citizen understand what's happening here. But we do not have this in Rotterdam because, or for this project, for this RUGGEDISED, because it's mainly on the premises of Ahoy, the public transport hub, and the huge shopping mall and a theater. And so there are no no residential people living here. And therefore, as I mentioned before, it's a total different game of engaging the stakeholders. And we do have these characters that are represented by different companies and energy providers and investors. And they all, you see, they all have different interests. It's also, there is no, the goal for the smart city project is to make, of course, to produce, well, to make a better living area or using area of this specific area where you implement these solutions. But here we have normal business cases. We can't have losses, and I think it's a good case for testing these solutions if they're also business cases proof. But you do see that with testing the new solutions, it's not always the same as usual business, and that takes a lot of time and effort. Companies, they just want to earn money, and they don't see it as an investment in the future to test things. So it's quite difficult with these stakeholders with their classic contracts. And then we found the egg of Columbus, I would say. We had the kind of ambassador approach. So all of a sudden, Ahoy, the company Ahoy, they saw the benefits of these test projects and that they became a more sustainable area, and that clients were more attracted to a sustainable conference center instead of just a normal conference center. So they started to see that clients would rent the place more easily than maybe the other entertainment areas within the Netherlands. So they became all of a sudden quite an ambassador for our project. And with such a, how do you say that, private publicity company, they were very positive on the RUGGEDISED project and also communicated it outside of their businesses, and that attracted all of a sudden all the other partners, as the cinema and the hotel and the area in the heart of South, to invest in this kind of test cases and use it as their showcases, which helped us enormously. And then I'm not going to go in detail to this slide, but the only thing I still notice within the Netherlands is that if you have a co-creation with private businesses, it takes time, and it's a lot of stakeholder engagement and understand all their different interests. As for the smart waste, smart lighting, where we have a classic client contractor engagement, it's way more easy to get the job done. The municipality assigns a contractor to install what we want, and it's being executed. As for a co-creation, it takes a lot of time. I think this is my presentation. I'm not sure if they're already. I think we can wait for the.
Much, Katelien. It was also very, very interesting. I think it showed how, on the first place, smart cities then become more resilient cities, as your example from the garbage collection during the pandemic showed. And as far as stakeholders' engagement is concerned, it is clearly a case from where we can learn about the complexities of all these processes. It's beneficial, but of course it's not easy, and it requires a mindset change, as all innovation processes. But that's the case, especially short-term visions and short-term profits are in a way contrasting the objectives of reaching for sustainability through engagement, right? Thanks again. I would leave all questions for the Q&A. I would invite our audience to start typing your questions in the chat box. A few of those have already come, and then I will just give the floor to our next speaker, who is Sandy TUNG. So we move from the Netherlands to the UK. Sandy is the program manager for the sharing cities at the Greater London Authorities. Thank you, Sandy. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Maria. Good morning, everybody. I'm very pleased to be talking to you today about sharing cities and our citizen engagement methods. And today we will, I'll take you through an overall approach of the program, and then go into a deep dive into our digital social market, which is our citizen engagement platform. So let me start by actually introducing the program, Sharing Cities, and to put it into a bit of context. So the Greater London Authority is the lead coordinator of this 24 million euro 5-year program that started in 2015. Our consortium is formed of a group of 34 European partners from across the private, public, and academic sectors. Someone's moving my presentation. Here, which is, and some of our partners, one of our partners includes Future Cities Catapult, based in London, who has been closely, who has been leading the citizen engagement efforts with us. And so what we're doing in Sharing Cities, we have been testing our smart solutions in our 3 lighthouse cities, which are Lisbon, Milan, and London. And in London, we are testing our solutions in a demonstrator district in the Royal Borough of Greenwich, so that's in southeast London. And we also have 3 cities in the network, fellow cities, Berge in Bulgaria, Bordeaux in France, and Warsaw in Poland, who are replicating the measures that we tested in these lighthouse cities to demonstrate the scalability of these solutions. The overarching aims of this program is that through collective demand aggregation, we can actually help shape this collaborative smart cities market and increase the speed and the scale at which relevant and citizen-centric solutions are implemented across all of our cities to support national and local authorities to meet their sustainability commitments. We want to be able to make use of our citizens' drive and willingness to kind of support these actions that and take part in actions that mitigate the impacts of climate change, and we want to empower them to use the their behaviors in sustainable behaviors to make real impact through actions such as active travel, so walking and cycling, the use of e-mobility, and engaging in sustainable energy consumption. So I'll talk to you a little bit about how the digital social market facilitates that through citizen engagement. Our program is built on the three principles of people, place, and platform, which is essentially about engaging effectively with citizens to implement these sustainable, low-carbon, smart technologies in our local neighborhoods, and using shared platforms to manage data-driven solutions. So just to give you a quick overview of what all the smart city solutions that we've implemented, because they all kind of tie together. In mobility, we've tested low-carbon mobility solutions such as e-bike sharing schemes, electric vehicle car clubs, and logistics solutions. Around the area of smart street infrastructure, we've installed smart lampposts that are fitted with sensors, LED lighting, and electrical vehicle charging, and smart parking solutions that feed in real-time data into sharing data platforms. We've also conducted building retrofit works in public social housing, municipality buildings, and private residential buildings to improve energy efficiency. And we've also implemented sustainable energy management systems that link a whole series of energy assets together in a district to manage and optimize energy use at a district level. So tying together all of these things is two things. One is our work around data sharing platforms, which integrates all of these measures. But secondly, and I think most importantly, is citizen engagement. So we've come from a point from where it's where it's really important to kind of first start with the people. So understanding who we are working with, who are using these solutions, what do they need for us as we're designing and implementing these technologies, to really understand people's experiences before thinking about what sorts of infrastructure or technology or solution that is supposed to be implemented to really help address those needs. So from everything from designing our our e-bikes and shared mobility schemes to conducting our building retrofit works, Sharing Cities has developed and applied this co-design approach to ensure that citizens have been engaged from the very beginning of the design process. So that really is the central part of Sharing Cities. We're trying to tie all of this together to ensure not only that actions are supported with evidence using the data from our smart sensors and to understand how our infrastructure is used, but also engaging with our citizens, enabling them to take action. That's really important. And so we've throughout the design and implementation of all of this smart technology, we've applied a process to support the co-creation of these urban services, and we kind of come up with a couple of lessons or a few kinds some experiences about what's the most important thing when you're actually designing these services with your residents, with your citizens, people who are using these smart services. And the first thing that's really important is to obviously know your audience and know who you are talking to, who's actually using these tools. And then secondly is actually to adopt a group of early adopters establish a group of early adopters. So if you know that there are going to be some people who are more willing to take the step to using something new and something that is not familiar, if you have some people that can really kind of show that, you know, it works, that they like it, that they can actually influence other people who are still hesitant or unsure about this to actually take that step as well. So that early adopters is really important. Talk to people in the right way. So it's really about empathy, you know, thinking about the people that you're designing for, what their experience is, and speaking their language so that they can understand what we're actually doing together. And then fourthly, you know, it's to kind of to lead with the benefits. So explain what we are doing in terms that people can relate to. So how does implementing a smart lamppost or an EV charger or an e-bike scheme, how does that actually benefit you? How does a building retrofit actually benefit you? And I think once you actually think about it, it's actually quite simple to do, but it just takes that extra step to be thoughtful about what you want to say. And then finally, just accepting that each project is unique. There's no one size fits all. So even though you've done a really intensive co-design process in one building, perhaps in another building with those residents, they might have different needs. So it's you can't really shortcut that. You have to really go and understand those people, understand what they need in order to develop solutions that work for them. And so that's kind of our general approach. Just kind of going through a few examples of things that we've done actually to engage stakeholders. We did a lot of exploration with citizens, and this is something that we did, for example, with our building retrofit works in residential buildings. Spent a lot of time doing some user journey mapping. We've done some use case development, so to understand not only the users but the other stakeholders, so the people, the companies that are operating or managing these assets, understanding all those different local stakeholders, how they actually interact with this technology, and understand and to develop a use case so that we can actually use that information to go to our technology providers. So that they know what to install, what to expect. And we also did some, you know, pretty standard things as well, including surveys. In Greenwich, in London, they set up a platform on a platform called Commonplace, where residents could put on a map where they wanted an EV charger to be installed, and so that information was collected to make a decision about where we were going to install them. And so just to kind of all of these methods were used in all of our in different ways across all of our measures. But I'll talk to you a little bit more about the digital social market, which is our what I'm here to talk to you about today is this tool to really about using this tool to influence behavior change. So the digital social market is a gamification tool, kind of. So it's a versatile tool that includes online and offline components, where we actually use an app to encourage citizens to participate in this online community, to encourage each other to take up sustainable actions. And it's really about creating a community where people can encourage each other to think and act differently and do things that can actually have a positive impact on climate change. The DSM, for short, is a citizen engagement tool that can be connected with lots of different types of smart technologies to be applied for different applications. So depending on what you want your outcome to be, and depending on the technologies that are integrated. So in this diagram here, you can see the different types of solutions that Sharing Cities had explored integrating together. So for example, the DSM can be connected to mobility platforms to encourage cycling and walking. You can connect sensors and smart meters in homes to let buildings residents know when to use their appliances. I'll talk a bit more about that. That's what we did in London. And then basically what happens is all of these actions you get posted onto this platform, like social media. Other members see it and they like it and they give you claps and you get points. So basically those points can be redeemed as vouchers. So in our 3 cities, we had them in different ways, but essentially you could use these vouchers to redeem for in local businesses, for to shop, to have discounts at your local stores, or they can be redeemed for cash in the instance of London. And also in London, there was the option of actually donating these vouchers to charity, which is actually what most users did, which is really nice. Yeah, so in sharing cities, just quickly explain what was done in the other 2 cities. So we applied the DSM in different ways, so testing it into different scenarios and contexts in London, Lisbon, and Milan. In Milan, the tool was called Sharing Me, and it's being used by a community of over 2,000 people in a neighborhood where members are rewarding each other over sustainable actions. And what was quite interesting about this was during COVID, the lockdown in March through to the summer, the tool was actually adapted to support and maintain the community during this lockdown through various eco challenges to maintain these community connections. In Lisbon, the DSM was called Sharing Lisboa, and it was used to spur a competition between primary schools in a district, with students and their families competing against each other and rival schools to complete sustainable living actions. And back in London, what we were doing is very much in coherence with our city's Smart London strategy, which is called Smarter London Together, which really says that a smart city is only really useful if it improves the lives of people and helps address the needs of citizens. So in our view, a smart city is one that is collaborative, connected, responsive, and uses data to respond to our citizens' needs. So in our demonstrator district, which is what you see in our photo here, the Royal Borough of Greenwich, the borough had brought together 2 of our solutions to demonstrate how energy management can be augmented by citizen engagement. So we actually linked together the sustainable energy management system to the digital social market. So the digital social market was really used to encourage citizens to engage with and use energy differently, and to try and shift their perception and change behaviors through rewards. And so just a quick word about the sustainable energy management system is basically it centralizes the data and controls a series of local energy systems and devices, so that it can basically optimize the energy use depending on the time of day, depending on energy demand and price and weather and all sorts of conditions, and make predictions about when is the best time to use energy. And so that's connected with the citizen engagement platform. And so what we were actually really experimenting with here was creating a demand-side response service for residents, which is a first in London, actually. And so this service was co-designed with local residents, with a multidisciplinary project team. So we worked with our local partners, Kiwi Power, the Future Cities Catapult, as well as the Royal Borough of Greenwich. And the DSM app is called Greenwich Energy Hero. So this app displays live energy usage and energy saving tips, which you can see on the next slide here. So it's designed to be really clear and easy to use and informative and educational. And so it shows you, your energy use because it's connected to your smart meter in your home. It has these energy saving tips, and it shows you, hero status. Basically, if you accumulate enough points, you are earned for interacting with the service. You can redeem vouchers and things like that. And so Greenwich Energy Hero was offered as a service to households in one of our buildings that we retrofitted in Greenwich, and was the aim of this was really to try and first bring awareness to sustainability and how people can be involved in that, and how we can be involved in helping balance the demand and supply of electricity, and to test people's ability to kind of change their behavior and patterns of electricity consumption. And so what was done here was that people who we call heroes are asked to reduce their energy or electricity use for a temporary period through an app notification. So certain times of the day, they'll get a notification on their app. And then users are allocated points based on how much electricity has been reduced during that period of time compared to a baseline. And then their points can then be converted into vouchers or donations. And so everybody was eligible who lived in that building. They were who lived in that district actually. And by linking smart meters to this app, everyone who had this app installed could engage with this demand side response. It was, yeah. So you don't really need to have all the kind of electricity assets. Like, you need to have an electric car. You don't need to have everything that's connected to the internet, but all you do need is just, what's inside your home. And so it was nice in the way that everybody was eligible to participate. One thing that was really important about this process actually was that not only did we have to engage in a process of co-design at the beginning of designing the Greenwich Energy Hero, and indeed all the other digital social market apps. It was not just that you had to engage them with co-design, but also once you have built that engagement, you had to maintain that engagement, because as you can imagine with a lot of these apps, and you probably experienced this yourself, is that once you have an app, you play with it for a bit and then you get bored with it. And so it's really important to maintain this engagement and keep people's attention. And so not, the financial reward, I think, is a great big driving factor, but that's not sufficient to maintain engagement. So you can see in this chart, in this process here, that actually throughout the course of designing, onboarding, and maintaining this solution, that there are lots of actions that we actually had to take to continuously engage people in doing these in staying engaged in this solution, 3 months in, 4 months in, and 12 months in. And so once you have this maintained kind of set of engaged users, you know that you have success, because what you normally see is quite a big drop off at the beginning if you're not continuously engaging with the people. Just finally, some insights, interesting insights about what we've observed through implementing this app in Greenwich. What we found was that actually people really liked this idea of being able to have some sort of control over their electricity use and being able to take part in managing energy. And users were actually very responsive. So what was interesting was that when people were asked to take part in this peak energy alert and having to turn off devices, people said that the 3 easiest ways of reducing or delaying electricity was, first, I think this was household appliances, so things like washing machines and dryers were as easiest to kind of to switch them on at a later time. The second thing was doing household chores, so doing the vacuuming or ironing. They could also easily find another time to do that. And then thirdly, it was charging your devices. And so, yeah, I think what you can see here is that most of the users had really enjoyed it and took part in it, and actually have been talking to other people about this project, and which is really what we're trying to do, is to kind of catalyze and spur more people to be interested in this effort. Just finally, what I'll say is we've spent a lot of time actually to understand what worked and what didn't work about our experiences with citizen engagement, not only with that, but also all of our smart measures that we've implemented across our lighthouse cities. And so we have collected all of these experiences and lessons learned and tools and templates and things into a series of playbooks that really look at not only the technical design, but also looking at the societal needs, understanding the kind of other the structurals, kind of the more softer sides of learning in terms of what was challenging about the implementation. So if you have a moment, I would recommend you have a look at our website. All of these playbooks are on our website that are free to download and learn. And what we want to do is really share our experience. So with that, I'm just going to end here and pass it over back to you, Maria.
No. Thank you so much, Sandy. It was really inspiring. You clearly approached the issue from a slightly different angle if compared to our previous speakers, as you were very much focusing on the citizens' engagement side more than the stakeholders' engagement part. And it was really interesting. I would just like to mention that the digital social approach and the focus on citizen-driven innovation, empowerment, and behavioral change, it really resonates a lot with how we framed these issues in the citizen engagement solution booklet that we just finished. So thank you again. So it's now due time to start our question and answer session. I really see that there are a few questions already in the Q&A. If you allow me, I would start from just one for all the speakers, and then we can proceed with those which are already in the chat and eventually more. So basically, my first question to all or to whoever feels ready to answer this is about the way citizen engagement or users engagement change the business as usual of city administration and projects implementation in smart cities. I think this change was quite clear from all the presentations, and I could really frame or identify two main approaches. On one side, Miquel was referring to capacity building of the city administration staff to build the new competencies that are needed to approach this complexity of pulling different stakeholders together or engaging with citizens and bringing their direct input into the projects. So on one side, capacity building. On the other side, I understood, for example, that in London you relied on an expert organization for doing so, for implementing all the co-design processes and so on and so forth, or maybe a combination of these two aspects. So it would be interesting to hear more on this. Whoever would like to just answer first.
I can start, if I may. So about your question, Maria, and the specific one in Barcelona about how this user engagement changes the business as usual from the public administration and the capacity building from public servants. I think that here what we're seeing from smart solutions is that people through technology are in the center of all the business, and that means that when you want to deploy one of these policies from the public sector, we really need to change our point of view. We need to understand that we're used from the public sector to work from our side and deploy and offer all the services and solutions to the citizens. And here, thanks to smart solutions, what we see is that maybe our work, it's less being the provider and being more the one that helps the solutions to enhance by themselves. And do you hear me well, Maria? Yes. Okay. Okay. And I think this is very crucial. So in terms of capacity building for public servants, the need is that we public servants or we need to understand that sometimes we don't need to be the ones deploying the solutions. We need to help them to be deployed by the market, and that means to have a more open-minded and more prepared for the businesses for the business activities. Thank you.
Thank you, Miguel.
I can add to that, as Michael says, we cannot steer the market, but we can be involved and try to turn them in the, as we see it, right direction, future-proof direction, and by a lot of, I think, as we call it, drinking coffee. And breaking open the usual contracts, and also a lot of lawyer engagements. But with all these conversations and again and again stakeholder engagements, you see that the businesses and the partners start to understand why it's important to move this way, why it's important to start using these new solutions. And what kind of benefits it can bring them. So as a public servant, you don't really have a business kind of role, but you can use, well, the public servant is very important in the intermediary role.
I would completely agree with that, and I think that role as the facilitator, and I think is underrated and it's also I think that what was really useful for us was to really articulate those benefits to different stakeholders, and I think that's a unique role that as a public servant we can do, so that we can communicate to our citizens, but we can also communicate with the vendors, the private sector. Sometimes they speak different languages and they use different terminologies and have different motivations. And so being able to understand those different perspectives and bring them together and explain to everybody in the room that, that actually all of this benefits us together, I think that's the value, really.
Thank you so much. I would now go to maybe some of the questions which were posed to you from our participants here, and actually starting from the more, I would say, from the broader one. I just typed this one here from Andreas, who was pointing at the potential or actual dangers that digitalization can entail as it comes to sustainability. So we had, he referred to this report from the German Advisory Council on Global Change. I don't know if any of our speakers would like to provide an input on this? It's quite broad. It actually brings us a bit far from the users, citizens, stakeholders engagement topic, I would say. If not, we could then maybe address some of the more specific questions per each speaker. To Miquel, we had the question on whether you work also on district cooling in your project, and also there was an additional question on the chat box pointing at potential discomfort for the citizens as outcomes of the public mobility policies of the city. How do you tackle this?
Thank you, Maria. I will before answering these two questions, I will go back to the ones of Andreas just very briefly, or trying to make it very briefly because it's a very broad subject. But going back to Andreas and the warns that digitalization might endanger rather than support sustainability targets. It's true. We have this reality that what we're seeing, at least in emissions, digitalization is also an issue. Like the capacity of there's a reality that the use of digital devices and all the digital set, let's say like that, also consumes energy, and therefore there's a issue on emissions. On that side, what we're doing in Barcelona, we're trying to find solutions to reduce this reality, and by working with through open innovation, we're working with several universities and private centers trying to reduce this. But it's true, we have this threat, and we have to be aware of it. I will not say more in it, because if not, we can start another session. So going back to my specific questions, I would say, yes, we work in district cooling. We have a very interesting district cooling project that it's working in one part of the city that I would say that mainly it's reaching like around, I would say like maybe around 10% or even a little bit more of the city. So it's not quite bad. This district cooling project, it's a public-private partnership, meaning that the public sector, it's part of the owner of the project, but mainly all the work is done by the private sector. And what is interesting is that the private companies or public companies that work on or private owners that live or work or own buildings, they are the ones that make deals with the district heating company to deploy the network to their network. So it's quite very interesting, and if you want more information, for sure I can share it with you. And going back to the last question, that this one also I would say it also could be a question that will reach one session. It's about all our new public policy of mobility that we have done this last month. I would like to say that this is it's what we call the tactic policies that we have done right now to try to give specific answer to the reality of COVID, and that means that these are the way they're done. They are easily undone if we want to. So that's a very important point to be aware of that. The other thing is that we really need to give an answer of the new normality that we're living right now. And the new normality at the beginning said that security was the main driver in regarding mobility decisions. So people were more prioritized to use bikes, to walk, or to use private cars instead of using public transport, meaning that it's understood, it's understandable, because we had all this problem with the coronavirus. So we try to give solutions to enhance a more sustainable mobility, a more sustainable private mobility. That means that improving bikes and walking. From here, what we are seeing right now is that the public transport is increasing, and we have like a table of mobility in Barcelona, and in this table we will be debating a table where you have private companies, citizens, associations, and here we will be debating about the future of this public politics of mobility. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Miguel. There's a last question to Sandy on the benefits of shared e-bikes if compared to the regular bike use. What benefits and how you calculate those?
Yes. So what we found with the e-bikes is that actually they've been really good for helping people who are not as confident on bike and cycling to cycle more often, and that also that actually e-bikes enable you to kind of go further or use your bikes more often, and that was surprising to us. I think in Lisbon in particular, and this is where I think our e-bikes in particular were more very, very popular. It's a very hilly city, and so the benefits, I think, for using e-bikes is very obvious. And prior to the installation of the e-bike share, actually, before Sharing Cities program started, there was actually virtually no cycling in the city, and so it's been really transformational to see the effect of the bikes to encouraging cycling culture. In their statistics of the data that they've collected in Lisbon, I think they're seeing something like e-bikes being used 10 times more often than a regular bike in their bike sharing scheme. So I think that's pretty strong, compelling evidence that they're popular with people.
Sure, there are. Thank you, Sandy. There are probably also some age-related components there in the e-bikes uptakes, I guess. Okay, I think as we are approaching the end of this session, it's time for the final statements for each one of you. Really, a couple of sentences that you would like to close this session with. I would start from Katelien.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for this interesting session. First of all, it was nice to hear also the other stories. And I do think all these small steps contribute to the bigger question on climate adaptation. So I do think we need to move onwards with these kind of projects. That's it.
Thank you, Katelien. Miguel, please.
Thank you, Maria. I would like to point that to deploy these smart cities and a more resilient and sustainable cities, we really need better public-private partnerships with the academia and citizens in them. Through these more improved partnerships, we are able to enhance innovation that allows to have a more resilient local economy that it's more needed than ever now in times of coronavirus. Thank you.
Right, thanks. Sandy, please.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you so much, everybody, for a really interesting discussion. I've learned a lot today. And I think, yeah, to take away from the session, like you said, collaboration is so important. And I think what's important for us to do is to continue really working, with our local stakeholders and our citizens to really understand how technology can help us reach our climate targets, help us our cities become more sustainable and resilient. So if we keep that focus right, then the digitalization and then technology will help facilitate these goals to be achieved.
Thanks a lot, Sandy. I would just really conclude by reminding the targets of the mission board on climate neutral and smart cities, which really recommend to you make use of citizen engagement and stakeholders engagement throughout the smart city project cycles, to really mainstream these approaches, and not only to work with users, but also to and citizens, but also to bring their voices, their inputs, and to and perspectives into the process in a consistent and continuous way, so that the main message is work smart cities for citizens and by citizens. Thank you again to all our speakers, to iClay for organizing such an interesting session, and of course to our audience and participants who stayed with us until the very end and contributed with interesting questions as well. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.